Hey everybody, it's Dennis again. So last time we talked about the fourth step, and we talked about how scary and it can be a real problem, and it shouldn't be a problem. We should just plow through. And you're like, why are you starting with the fourth step? There's, three others in front of it, and I probably should, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The reason why I did the fourth step was because one of the main things I am talking about here on this little channel is confronting the problems that we have when we go through sobriety. I really think that it's important to look at those challenges. But I also think it's important to know the first step is actually the biggest of all. And the fourth step is like all of this. I mean, the first step is like all of this together, right? The first step is coming to this point. Let's talk about the first step. I know it, but I'm going to just literally read it. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Now, it's important to know that often in AA and recovery and in general, when you talk about the first step, they are really talking about the point where you stop drinking. It's funny, when I first came into AA, I was like, it doesn't say that. It does not say you have to stop drinking. And it doesn't. But the implication is that you have recognized there's a problem and you got to do something about it, right? And people will even say that, not in just AA, in general parlance, they'll say, the first step is recognizing there's a problem. And that's what we're doing here. So it's important that it says that our lives have become unmanageable. That's another word that's kind of squishy, right? Unmanageable. Well, you have to understand, if you're an alcoholic like me, what you think is normal for your life is not normal, okay? I was living a very abnormal life the way I was drinking. And it's the one thing I always point to, right, is social drinkers. So for me, for a long time, I had stashes everywhere. I had them throughout the neighborhood. I had them around where I worked. And that's not normal to have stashes outside for you to drink so you can get drunk. And so I would have stashes outside where I work so that at lunchtime, I could have my bologna sandwich and vodka. And I'd grab this bottle that I would carefully stash, the morning before or whatever. And it'd be, in the summer, it'd be like 100 degrees. And you know how disgusting vodka is at 100 degrees? It is the most difficult thing to drink and keep down. But I managed to get that down and do what you have to do so you can get through the rest of the day. So I got to tell you, doing that, grabbing that stash that you put there and at lunchtime so you can grab it so nobody's looking, and where I would put it in like some wooded area off the side of a driveway, whatever, and I'd glug it down as best I can. That's not social drinking, okay? I would, on the way home, I would stop off at an industrial parking lot, right? Nobody would be there. That's my favorite place to drink back then. And I would go to this industrial parking lot where nobody was there, nobody cared, and there was often a dumpster I could get rid of my stuff. And there were no cameras back then. It might have been, but I didn't really care. And I would get drunk within, 8 minutes. I'd glug down a quart of vodka. And then, I'd have a few minutes and I'd get home and I'd be drunk in 20 minutes. And wow, how did that happen? I didn't even have a drink. Oh, yes, I did. That's not social drinking. Okay, and I know you all have your own examples because you can't get to the point of alcoholism. You're not watching this because you are a social drinker. You need to recognize that. And it's not just the social drinking thing. It's the absolute incessant thinking that you have, that obsession you have about drinking. That's not normal, and it's not good. It's not good. And you might not even know it because your normal is become normal to you, but it's not normal to everybody else. And it's not good. Again, I'll say it is not the best you can have. So what the first step is saying, your life, you see this life you got here? That's not okay. That's not normal. It's time to get normal, and it's time to put down the drink. It's, when I first started recovery, I didn't come in, happy to give it up. I did not want to give it up. Truly, that was probably the biggest obstacle I had. I didn't want to stop. And I would see the first step. I went to a step meeting every single Wednesday. And I would see this, and immediately my defenses would get up. Oh, no. I can manage this. I can do this. And I was not dealing with the reality, with truth, right? And that's another theme that we have going throughout this whole thing, is the honesty, the truth. The truth is that I was drinking alcoholically, that my life was a disaster mess, that I went home and lived with my mom at the age of 35, I guess I was. And honestly, that's not good. That's not normal. That's not a good life to be trajecting that way. And I was incredibly alone. So alone. Nobody wanted to be around me. And honestly, I didn't want to be around people, but I did, because I felt so lonely. But I knew I couldn't drink this way in a social context, in any kind of interpersonal way, because I needed to get drunk. I thought I needed to get drunk every single day, and often throughout the day. And that kind of precludes people being in my life. The first step is one that you should repeat often, right? When you go to an AA meeting, one of the first things you do, you go around the room and you identify yourself. And you say that you're an alcoholic. You say, my name is Dennis and I'm an alcoholic. Actually, my sponsor has taught me to say, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Dennis, because he said it's even more important than knowing your first name is to know that you're an alcoholic. By doing that, we do a little mini first step. We're admitting we're an alcoholic. And that's what this is. You admit you're an alcoholic, and then it's time to do something about it. You can stay on this step for a while. I don't recommend that. You should try to stop drinking as soon as possible, but you need to, sometimes things take a little bit of time to penetrate into your mind, especially for an alcoholic, because you're giving up the most important thing in your life, and that's alcohol. And that's the brutal honesty. Alcohol is the most important thing in your life, whether you want to acknowledge that or not, but it is time to acknowledge that it is also the biggest problem you have right now. So I ask you to look at the first step. I ask you to think about it as the first step is when you actually have to put down the drink. Or you choose to put down the drink. I shouldn't say have to. It is choice. It is all suggestions, heavily suggested, but it is all suggestions. And thanks.